So let's make a start on assembling this main processor board. And we're going to start with some of the smallest components first, as usual. And I've decided to start with these 104, I think that's what that says, capacitors. So on our parts list here, we've got C2, C5 and C7. Now very helpfully on the actual silk screen of the circuit board, it actually says there, we've got C2, but above it it says 104. And then if we come down to C7, again we've got 104, C5, 104. So it's helpfully printed on both the package containing the capacitors and then also the circuit board itself. So let's see if we can ping these halfway across the room and lose them all. They've given us an extra one, so that's very kind of them. And of course I'm using flux as well. Pretty much essential when working with these surface mount components. So we'll just put on just the right amount of flux. These are fiddly little components. So because we got just the right amount of flux on, I can do the naughty thing and just bring solder to the joint using the soldering iron. Ordinarily very bad practice, but because you've got extra flux on the board, it's alright. But now you can see once that's in place, I'm just using a more traditional way of bringing the solder to the joint. So, a bit out of practice with these. Let's have a little zoom in and see how terribly I've done. Not too bad. Right, so I shall put that spare capacitor back in the bag, and then we shall move on to this 22 picofarad capacitor, assuming we can find that all right. So that might be it. That might say 22P, considering the only other capacitor that we have is the electrolytics. So I think we're safe. So this is for C12 and C13. These are the two little bias capacitors for the crystal. And again, bonus, we've got an extra one. What we will use that for, oh, the sky's the limit. As you can see, I grab hold of these when I'm soldering them because sometimes they have a tendency to move about, or you can nudge them with the soldering iron and that can spoil your day. And then once the solder's set, I just try and move them. And that tells me whether the solder joint has properly taken. Now you can, if you want, reapply a bit of flux just to try and make the best joint you can out of these other sides. You don't have to, but it often does make a nicer joint. So again, put the used packet back in somewhere so you don't try and find or try and redo the same components. And I'll stroke off the ones I've done, just as a little bit of a reminder not to have to try and do those again. So now we'll start onto some resistors and we'll see what value these are. 104, so that's 1, 0 and 4 zeros. 100k, according to my calculations. And we've got just one of them. Let me just make sure. 103, so 10 and 3 zeros, so that's 10k. We've got two of those. Oh, can't see those. Let me zoom down a bit more. So 1, 0 and 1. So 100 ohms. One of those. This, which is a 0 ohm. And that's R6. So let's bring this one back in. This is 1, 0 and 3 zeros, so this is the 10k. We'll start with the highest one. We'll start with the 100k, which is 104. Well, you can mount these upside down. It's nicer for the next guy if we turn them around the right way. So 100k, this is R1, which is here. And of course it is. So the next one is the 10k. Let's just stroke off the 100k. Done. We're now on to 10k. This is R2 and R3. So, 100 ohms, we just have one of these and it's R4. Okay, I'm going to scribble off R4. One left is the 0 ohm resistor R6, which is down here. So that's all our little passives. The only one left to do is our diode D6. Fiddly trying to get just one. There we go. So there obviously is a polarity with this. So we can see our stripe on the package. We can see our line on the silk screen, which corresponds to that. And of course, on our instructions, bring this in, we see the stripe again pointing towards the battery holder. Of course, the battery holder is here. So that is the right way around. Just going to reflow that with a bit of fresh flux on it, just to make sure that that is soldered okay. And so that's our little small components just all put on.